Guys, I'm gonna be honest, I thought I was on time with tackling the Bet show. I wholeheartedly thought I was so quick with this while watching it at the start of August, and then I searched it up, and Bet came out in May? I hadn't heard anything about it since the first trailer dropped. Geez, okay, fine, I see how it is. I was on time with Kakegurui though when it came to Canada. It came here 7 years ago, but I just wanted you to know I did binge watch it while I was sick back in grade 8. God, that was 7 years ago. What? Oh, that's disgusting. Anyways, hi, hello, I'm Mika, and I make art and commentary videos on top of running a small art business where I sell art prints, stickers, acrylic charms, and button pins. And today, I wanted to talk about Kakegurui.
Hi, sorry, this is editing Mika. Ignore how nasally I sound, I'm sick, but I just wanted to note that I will be mispronouncing the name of Kakegurui. I, for some reason, just don't add in the U. Like, I know it's there. I could have sworn I added in the U in Kakegurui. I just don't. I don't know why I do that. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. I am aware that I'm mispronouncing it. I just, as you can hear, I'm not in a place where I can re-record all the times I say Kakegurui. Kakegurui! Okay, see, I'm doing it again. That's all. Back to the video.
Or more specifically, the show that sort of takes the anime's name and rakes it through the mud. Bet. Well, okay, I'm gonna be talking about both, but this video came from me watching Bet. I'll leave the show bios for once I get to both of them on their own, but all you need to know right now is that both Kakegurui and Bet are about high schoolers who base their social standing on gambling. Kakegurui is honestly such a fun show, and while it can be questionable at times, specifically Midori, it's engaging and interestingly enough commentates on how we as a society operate, and I don't even remember that being a part of the show. And Bet definitely exists! Throughout the video, I'm going to be going over the two shows and detailing what works about them and what doesn't. I just want to preface that I haven't read the Kakegurui manga. I really just don't have the space or money for it. I would have put it on hold at my local library if I could, but they unfortunately don't have it at all in their catalog. It's fine though, apparently not much changes between the show and manga other than season 1's finale not even happening, and an additional character in season 2. Now, without further ado, let's get into Kakegurui. Spoilers ahead. Also, sorry if my voice sounds raspy at all. I think I'm getting sick, but I'm feeling well enough to record this video, so hopefully everything sounds good. Okay, one more note. I'm not watching season 2. It's just a lot of content that I don't necessarily need for the video, especially since Bet really only follows season 1 of the anime, so I'd rather save time and focus on getting the script done. Anyways, Kakegurui season 1 follows Ryota and Yumiko at Hikao Private Academy. While Ryota himself doesn't typically gamble on his own anymore, Yumiko is in love with any game she comes across, as long as the game isn't rigged, so one of them is guaranteed to win, that is. We follow the two as she works her way through the student council, who are at the top of the school's food chain, in an effort to satiate her need to compulsively gamble. I just want to start by noting how fun of a setting this is. Like, yeah, having a weird and messed up high school isn't a new concept at all. I don't know anything about Danganronpa, but I think that's a prime example of a messed up high school. I feel like Ouran High School Host Club isn't nearly on the same level as these two, but it's, I guess, a similar concept since host clubs are, you know, clubs. They aren't exactly for high schoolers. But anyways, yes, gambling in a high school setting was a great idea. In fiction, not in real life. Don't misinterpret that quote. Another thing I find fun about Kakegurui is just how tense it makes most gambles feel, even if there isn't much on the line. Sure, there's the threat of Yumiko becoming a house pet towards the beginning of the series, but we quickly learn she can pay it off at any time and just chooses not to. What's a house pet? A house pet is a status within the school. If you fall into debt and can't pay it off, you are given a tag and forced to do your classmates' bidding. Later on, the student council even introduces life plans into the mix. They claim to have complete control over your life if you aren't able to pay back your debt. And Yumiko chooses to stay in this position throughout the majority of season 1, even utilizing it to be able to force student council members into gambling with her since they're obligated to play a game with her if she requests an official match. Speaking of student council, they were incredibly successful at making them threatening. I really liked the decision they made keeping all of them away from Yumiko until it was time for their official matches. It really made them feel like they were obstacles she needed to work past in order to succeed, especially with Karari. Karari doesn't really interact with Yumiko, adding a sense of distance between the two and making it seem like she's just out of reach. Their bet towards the end does make her more tangible, but she does become more present in the next season, so it's understandable. Makes sense that this is an anime-only thing though. I kind of would have preferred if she remained out of reach until the end. It was really fun to see how Yumiko discovers just how student council cheats in their games, but I will admit that it did get a bit repetitive after a while, although I like the differing reasons for cheating. Yuriko cheats in order to keep her club members from becoming house pets, and Midori cheats to try and force herself to lose. I liked those little sprinkles of characterization. It really made Yuriko especially stand out since everybody on the student council, I don't know, some blended together too much in terms of personalities. I was kind of growing tired of the everyone at the school is a freak shtick. So Yuriko was a breath of fresh air, even if she was the first student council member we really see Yumiko face off against. Also, one thing I really like is that Kaede didn't cheat, just underestimated Yumiko. He's one of the most well put together student council members, and it makes sense that he'd prefer a clean game. Despite what I said about the everyone at the school is a freak shtick, I like Yumiko. Sure, she's a freak, but feels just sane enough that it's fun to watch her gamble and reason. Part of my care for her also comes from her compassion for the game and her opponent's enjoyment of said game. Although her outsmarting her opponents also got a bit repetitive. A lot of things got repetitive. Another thing that interests me is that while the threat of physical violence is incorporated into some gambles, nobody really gets hurt unless it's self-inflicted. We see Yumiko bet her nails, her finger in season 2, her life a few times, but nothing comes of it. And Itsuki and Midori hurting themselves was self-inflicted. The former did it out of anger and I feel like acceptance for the games that she plays, and the latter gouged out her eye to pay off a debt. And while yes, I can see people seeing this as a con since it kind of lessens the stakes and gives everyone plot armor, but shut up, I find it an interesting choice. While I do really recommend the show, I should probably note that there are a lot of weird scenes, even by normal anime standards, so be cautious before watching. But again, a really good show that provides a critique on our class system and our morals. Also, it's pretty heavily implied that most of these characters are sapphics, if not all. I tried with the live action adaptation. I tried. I really did. I thought it'd be fun to compare and contrast the live action to Bet too, but it was hard enough to get through one episode. I didn't want to subject myself to this. Fourth wall breaks for internal monologues are pretty corny. I don't think I need to explain why. While Mary and Yumiko gamble, it's way too light. I feel like only really being able to see the two really added to the gamble's tension. Like, the atmosphere really can't beat the anime. Hi, editing Mika, I'm back. I just wanted to note that rewatching this, I also realized that the anime does the scene so well just aesthetic-wise because they use cooler shadows. So the cooler tones kind of add on to that off-putting vibe of the scene. But in the live action, the colors are very warm. Warm colors are typically more welcoming than cold colors. So that on top of the scene being a bit lighter in the live action, just, it doesn't work that well. Or even Bet in some cases, for some reason. And okay, just a bit of a recap. In episode 1 of the anime, Yumiko reveals her wealth by dumping money onto the table before them, but here, Yumiko neatly places all her money down, which doesn't have the same impact at all. Their original way of just dumping everything on the table really showcases how much disregard she has for her own money. But whatever. Let me know if you want to see me watch through this live action adaptation and give more thoughts on it. I wouldn't mind watching through it, I just didn't want to spend too much time on a section that wouldn't even last that long. What the hell is happening to her eyes? Oh my god! Bet follows Yumiko Jabami as she goes undercover at St. Dominic's Prep in an effort to join student council and investigate her parents' murder, suspecting one of their old classmates to be the culprit. Not to be negative, but right off the bat, I'd say we have a rocky start. Adults are already way too present. The anime made their lack of presence feel intentional. The only time we see an adult being Yumiko's introduction. Personally, I feel like it's sort of a Lord of the Flies situation. Or not really, but do you get what I mean? children are left to their own devices and left to figure out how to run things on their own. Here, they can be as mean to each other as they want and have no repercussions. So what do? Not entirely Lord of the Flies, but that's the comparison I keep making in my head. Of course, the adults are more present because the plot revolves around them and their involvement with the gambling in the school, which is an okay route to take. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and admit taking the adults into consideration is an interesting idea. Again, still prefer the independence they get in the anime, but whatever. Sticking to the presence of the adults, Yumeko does have a caretaker that she shares a few scenes with, and her parents haunt the show since Bet has turned Kakegurui into a revenge story. Speaking of the show's revenge story, let's talk about the love triangle subplot because it ties in pretty close apparently. And of course, there's a love triangle. Why wouldn't there be a love triangle? Studios love them. And while there's a love triangle, neither option is a woman. I feel like what makes Kakegurui stand out so much is that, with the exception of Itsuki, none of the women really show any true interest in any men. They're all pretty heavily coded to be sapphic, even if Ryota is obviously crushing on Yumeko. Even if the characters aren't sapphic, there really isn't too much romance in the show, and I feel like that's a really nice touch because you usually expect there to be a romance subplot, but there isn't really. I feel like the lack of romance is also just a nice breath of fresh air. Also, one of the love interests is just an original character to Bet, and honestly, he's pretty bland. He's mostly just there to be Yumeko's voice of reason, be the tech guy, and listen to her trauma dump. Why did Yumeko just tell Michael about her parents? I thought this was supposed to be a secret. Also, kind of obvious that he was going to end up being an antagonist and be related to the person who killed Yumeko's parents in some way. Just saying, look, I'm fine with things being obvious, but they didn't really try to hide it at all. Moving on, Ryota, or Ryan in the show, feels like he's just been reduced to being a lovesick puppy. To be fair, Ryota isn't much better, but at least we see him take an initiative in gambling, helping Yumeko and make his own decisions. They gave all of Ryota's helpfulness to Michael and left Ryan with what I believe is Ryota's most surface level trait. I don't know. Ryota is admittedly pretty bland in the show and obviously an audience insert, but even this felt like a disservice to his character since Bet just splits him into Ryan and Michael. And now, student council. Oh, Kira, that lipstick. I feel like they should have went with a darker tone to match with her aesthetic, or maybe stuck with her platinum blonde hair. Either way, blue lipstick is hard to work with, and the live-action Kakegurui didn't even try to tackle it, and for good reason. Anyways, now moving on to student council, getting in is actually different from the source material. I don't think it's really stated how one joins student council in Kakegurui. It seems like the members sort of just talk to a member, get invited, possibly gamble, and then they decide from there. But here in Bet, there's a leaderboard that determines your rank, and the top 10 students join student council, which sort of disregards Itsuki's whole arc of buying her way in and learning how to take matters into her own hands. But that's obviously not the direction her Bet stand-in is going with, so whatever. We kind of have our student council lineup from the show. Yumemi just isn't there as a character, but I have a feeling they sort of worked bits of her into Itsuki's stand-in, Suki. Suki is a social media influencer, and the only trait he really shares with Itsuki is that he collects nails. Suki's character was hit or miss for me. He could be so over the top it was funny in a baffling way, but most of the time I was rolling my eyes at him, especially after he reveals he faked his death. Again, pretty obvious, but I won't dwell on it. Next we have Midori's stand-in, Dori. Dori really frustrates me. Dori is a disservice to Midori's character. Like, I hate when Midori's on screen, but that's just because she makes me uncomfortable. Character-wise, she's great. I don't know what they plan on doing with Dori's character in the future, but one of her more notable traits in the anime is she's obsessed with Yumeko's approval. She wants to play with her because she's the first person to ever truly match her gambling freak. The only person who is open to playing this modified version of Russian roulette with her. But in Bet, she's just boring. She's obsessed with Michael and doesn't even play Russian roulette. Instead, she plays this DDR stand-in of all things. And her cheat is so boring. It's just that she pretends to not know what arcade game she and her opponent are sent to play, but she has every game memorized, especially the DDR songs. Also, her weird obsession with Michael leads to her making a weird comment about them being step-siblings if their parents kept hooking up, and I'm just, ew. Obviously, it's not being romanticized, but I'm just so sick of her. She's a freak, but in all the wrong ways. Kaide's stand-in in the show is a guy named Chad, and he's exactly what you'd expect from a character named Chad, except he's secretly smart and has a photographic memory. Ooh, didn't see that coming, did you? Runa is normal, actually. She's not that present and is barely treated like a student council member, but she's just a toned-down version of her anime counterpart. Ririka's replaced by Riri, who just doesn't really talk. The same thing can be said for Ririka in the anime though, before season 2, so this isn't really me complaining, just me stating the obvious. Mary is also pretty similar to how she is in the anime, except this time she started out on student council before losing to Yumiko. From then on, she's forced to hang around Ryan and Yumiko, and is pretty desperate to be let back onto student council. But while I was a little surprised Bet made her set out where she did, I was even more surprised to see them put Mary and Riri into a relationship. Wow, they actually gave us a sapphic pairing. I'm actually shocked. Riri and Mary were a little fun, but came a bit out of nowhere, which is lampshaded in the show. But sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Moving on to our student council president, Karari is replaced by Kira, who is way too present in Yumiko's life in my opinion. Like I said earlier, what I really like about Yumiko and Karari's dynamic is that the president feels out of reach despite her doing everything in her power to keep Yumiko at bay. Sure, their gamble at the end of season 1 sort of messes that up for the rest of the show, but there was still lead up to it. But Bet really ruins it. Karari and Yumiko speak on multiple occasions and even have a mini gamble that didn't even have any proper lead up. Sure, it was quick, but it was super anticlimactic. I'm sure this was supposed to be a big moment, but it kind of just felt shallow. This is the first time the two of them are facing off. Make a bigger spectacle out of it. Their gamble at the end of season 1 would have been fine without it. No, I don't want to talk about the technical kiss they shared despite being cousins in the anime. While I'm worried about where it could lead, especially since they form an alliance in the very next episode, it wasn't a romantic scene, so they could definitely just make it go nowhere. I know they obviously aren't cousins this time around, but I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. Going back to Yumiko's revenge plot, I found it kind of boring, but like how they tied it into how the adults are more present in Bet. Still don't like that factor of the show, but at least there's a reason for the adults being there. But with the revenge plot, Yumiko seems to have developed a more violent side. Granted, it's really only so she can murder her parents' killer, but it's just so... okay. In the original show, there is a sense of danger in some gambles. They literally played a rigged game of Russian roulette. But nobody is actually hurt by an outside force in season 1. And again, every injury that does occur in season 1 is self-inflicted and either takes place during a gamble or is vaguely connected to one. Again, Midori losing her eye was just kind of to pay off a debt. It's a stake in a game that never extends to the students' day-to-day lives. But two people die in Bet, not in a gamble, but in an attack. And it's just so upsetting. I know the plot armor can be a turnoff from a show, but like the absence of adults, it felt intentional. It shows just how much these students are willing to risk it for a game. And speaking of the games, they're just so boring. Exposing each other's past? DDR? I can barely even bring up a third option because they were just that bland. And Yumiko and Ryan are literally hunted in one of their final games. And what irks me is that Kakegurui could have made these games enjoyable. They could have played with it, made the games intense and exciting, but since it's live action, they can't go all out on the characters being unhinged or else they may cross the line and make the audience wince. Speaking of which, Yumiko is way too put together. Sure, she finds gambling addicting, but we don't really see how excited she gets until we get to one of the final gambles with Mary, which, might I add, is the only real gamble I truly found exciting, and it's a game from the anime. She enters everything relaxed and composed, and nothing changes throughout the entire gamble, basically. I'm not saying they should have gone to the same extent they did in the anime, because the anime does a little too much at times, but god, let Yumiko let loose a bit. She isn't even the one who figures out how her opponents cheat most of the time. The information is fed to her before she can even play the game so she can prepare, but it's fun to see her discover the cheat halfway through and adapt. The only game I'd say was slightly interesting would have been the finger game, but again, that comes from the second season of the anime, not that I've watched it recently. Granted, the finger game was an interesting choice, and I love how it really does encapsulate the high the students get while in the midst of a game, but where is this manic energy coming from? She's barely shown just how willing she is to risk everything for a game. Sure, it's hinted at in the house pet party, but Yumiko willing to get shot for her prize more so reeked of desperation over her enjoying the thrill of possibly getting injured. I feel like that is also part of why I found the house pet party so boring in Bet. The dance episode was also a boring episode, and the game Yumiko and Ryan play at the end just pissed me off because it's implied that there's a chance Yumiko intentionally lost. Even just implying that she would dance around properly answering if she intended to lose or not seems so out of character because Yumiko would have wanted Ryota to win. She would have wanted him to understand the thrill of the game. But of course, the show needed to give her a roadblock since she was making way too much progress in such a short amount of time, and there was no way Ryan could lose to her in a gamble, so now she's a house pet. I get that her whole goal is getting onto student council, but Yumiko just gives too much of a shit about her house pet status. I get it, her anime counterpart didn't have the same goal she does, but I found Yumiko taking her house pet status and abusing her position really fun. I feel like Bet's Yumiko could have at least pretended not to care. It's like she was showing her hand. She's supposed to keep a level head in and out of game, but she's failing to do that here. Speaking of Yumiko's goal, by the end of the season, she does learn that her dad was killed by the entirety of St. Dominic's old gambling club, aka the Kakegurui Club, after they got them to invest in Bitcoin, but there may still be a chance that her mom's alive. With the help of Kira, who Yumiko kind of befriends after Kira's father makes her sister, Riri, head of the family over her. Well, not head of the family, but like a similar title. Side note, but I wonder if they're gonna try to incorporate the whole Bami clan into the next season because of this, or if they're going to try and go their own route. Sorry, off track. Kira helps Yumiko kill Rei right before the season ends. The short and sweet version of my critique is that Bet is a needlessly edgy adaptation to a show that was already pretty edgy. Despite being a show about gambling, Kakegurui is also a critique on social class, ideology, and, to an extent, capitalism. Bet is not. Instead, it just feels like a revenge story for the sake of being a revenge story, and it felt like 1 million things happened yet nothing at all. I was really clinging to the loose adaptation note in the title card to keep my sanity throughout the entire show. Hi, sorry, it's editing me again. This video has taken long enough that I'm not sick anymore. Like, it's been a while. Anyways, I feel a little bad that I just keep dogging on the show, so I thought I'd jump in and put in a few things that I did like. Disconnecting this from Kakegurui itself, I did like Riri and Mary together. I thought it's an interesting start to the relationship. I would be interested in seeing how that relationship develops. I'm also interested to see if they do incorporate the Bami clan plot of season 2 of Kakegurui, because I feel like that would be such a fun way to play into Kira not being satisfied with Riri taking her place. The visuals were really nice. They do lean more into the warmer tones that the Kakegurui live action used, but they put enough focus on the two people gambling. It was so much easier to tune everybody else out. The shadows that they used during the gambles were great. I really do like the coloring of the whole show. Okay, back to main Mika. I just felt really bad about just dogging on it, and I wanted to give you a reason to watch it if you were interested. Like, it's not all bad. Dude, I need a palate cleanser. I lied. I did end up watching season 2 of Kakegurui. Not that I didn't make it obvious. And it was such a fresh of breath air compared to Bet. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even want to fix that. I'm keeping that in. Season 2's arc follows our main cast, plus the Bami extended family as they all compete to become student council president through a competition set up by Kurari. Of course, Yumiko and Ryota don't actually care if they become president or not, and are mostly just roped in due to Yumiko's compulsions. Stakes feel high despite them just gunning to be Stu co-president, probably because there's a sense of urgency for those in the Bami family since becoming president also entails being head of a clan. The new characters are interesting, and our pre-established ones get a chance to be expanded upon. 3 characters are poisoned towards the beginning of the season, and it does conflict with what I mentioned earlier about season 1 and the characters getting injured injured, but all 3 don't end up dying. 2 of the 3 are poisoned as a way of cheating, and the other is poisoned for the sake of the game, so Kakegurui still has that over Bet. This time around, there's also more of a diversity in character motives. I felt like things got a little repetitive last season, but the student council members being only a little different. Half of them were pretty insane once you got past their base character traits, and only 1 really had a sympathetic reason for needing to stay on the council. But with the Bami family, we were able to get a wider range of characterization. Some want to win out of malicious intent, some go about things strategically, and others simply want to hone their craft. There's also a lack of cheating in some games, which only add on to keeping the viewers on their toes. Mary has her own subplot while everything is going down, where she and Ririka team up to help get Mary onto the council, and oh, okay, that's why they paired Riri and Mary together in Bet. Okay, yeah, I mess with it. One thing I do have a problem with in season 2 would be Ray. She was kind of boring, and the reveal that she was secretly a girl the entire time was kind of hollow, but I like what they were trying to do with her. She was mostly there to double down on the classism in the school and point out that the students are choosing to be mean to house pets. Apparently, it's a rule you have to treat them as lesser than you, but as seen with Yumiko and Ryota, there isn't really a punishment for being nice to them. Students are just choosing to be cruel to those they see as lesser than them. Rewatching season 2, I was also reminded that life plans weren't used in Bet. I feel like they could have upped the stakes for Yumiko and Mary, but I guess they didn't really have the time to incorporate them with the whole murder plot. Ryota had a chance to really shine at the beginning of the season, but he's basically non-existent for the rest of it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing since Yumiko has always been the main character. Ryota seemed to be the protagonist of season 1 since he's the one who made the final climactic decision during their bet with Karari, but obviously they just seem to have shifted focus more on Yumiko and Mary, so I can't really complain too much. I just wish there were a few layers to his character outside being an audience insert. I really don't have too much to say about this season. It was fun, the characters were great, and while the ending was it was still leagues above Bet. So, all in all, if you want to watch an adaptation of Kakegurui, just watch the original show. I'm so sorry. But if you're into revenge stories, you can always try Bet. Just form your own opinion, separate from mine. I went in already knowing Kakegurui, already knowing its characters, but if you can ignore all of that, I'm sure some people out there will be able to just enjoy the show for what it is. It's also getting a season 2, so you're gonna get more content soon. But if I may go back to critiquing the show, Kakegurui itself is a thrilling story about students with too much money and time on their hands. It's about classism and the effects of it, and Bet isn't that. I know I keep making that joke, but I can't lie. Sure, Kakegurui can be repetitive at times and have some strange scenes that definitely didn't need to be included, but it's definitely worth the watch in leagues above Bet. And that's really all I had to say about the 2 shows. So thank you so much for watching. I'm curious, did you enjoy Bet? Do you enjoy it over Kakegurui? Please let me know in the comments below. Also, are you interested in seeing me do more videos like this? Like comparing adaptations to each other? I have one I'm currently working on right now, but it's going to take me a while to finish since there are just so many adaptations for it. But I just wanted to know how you all felt about this format. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. I make art and commentary videos, and your support would mean the world to me. If you want to see more of me, my Etsy, where I, again, sell acrylic charms, stickers, button pins, and art prints, can be found in the description below alongside my other social links. I believe that's all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye!